Hello, hello, welcome to Siege Budget Brews. I'm Tim, and tonight, continuing in our series of $100 deck techs, we're going to cover Niv Parun. But before we get started, please check out our Discord and our Patreon. Links are in the description below. And if you like our content, please hit that like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out a lot. And I'm joined by my co-host, Brandon. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Good to see you. You ready to talk about some Niv?
I love Niv. One of my first decks, but also one of my favorites.
One of your first? Okay. All right. Fair. Um, I like Niv. Niv is like a fun deck. All right. Well, let's get busting a move, shall we? And
That was cringe,
away we
Tim.
go. Why are you laughing at me? Because I said
That
busting a
was
move?
cringe. That was cringe.
Because I said let's get busting a move?
Yeah,
I mean, you know I'm a boomer.
that's true.
All right. So, for those of you who don't know, Niv Parun is a 5/5 legendary creature dragon wizard with 3 red. It costs 3 red, 3 blue. Yep, that's right. 3 and 3. And then this spell can't be countered. Has flying. So that's a lot of word salad. But wait, there's more. It slices and it dices. It even juliennes. Because whenever you draw a card, Niv Parun deals 1 damage to any target. And whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery, you draw a card. And that's a player. So it don't matter who casts that instant or sorcery, you get a card. And they get a damage. Niv kind of really combos with 3 cards in the deck. And then we have like 1 backup line as well. So the first one kind of up here in the top is any curiosity effect on Niv. Once Niv deals the first point of damage to a player, you will begin a chain where you can keep targeting them, and then you'll keep drawing a card, and then you can keep targeting. Most of the time, you will have enough cards out of the 75 or 80 cards left in your deck that you'll be able to kill a board of players, especially once you punch one of them with a 5/5 dragon. Because players will have a tendency to leverage their own life as the game progresses. Compound that with the fact that you're not really going to be dropping Niv super early. You're really a control deck that's trying to slow the game down until you can land Niv in the main game, untap with Niv, and then proceed. So, in order to kind of protect Niv, we have a lot of spells that are free. And I mean a lot. And more than you would think that you would have in a $100 deck. Because we just need to be able to jam Niv and then get back to us and live to do it. Now, obviously, you're going to probably want some mana when you play Niv, but that's not always possible. Sometimes you just have to pick the turn and I won't say hope for the best, but make the best educated calculated risk you can. So the first one is Tandem Lookout. It has Soul Bond, and then as long as Tandem Lookout is paired with another creature, each of those creatures have, whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent, you draw a card. All right? And then down here in enchantments, we have Ophidian Eye, which has Flash, and it costs 1 blue, 2 colorless. And whenever an enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you draw a card. There's kind of a theme here. And then the last one is Curiosity, and that's whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you draw a card. Curiosity is the most efficient of the 3. Ophidian Eye gives you Flash, so that means you can kind of pile over people technically with it. And then the Tandem Lookout is recurable. Not that we're running a ton of creatures, but it is recurable. Then we're also kind of running Spellskite is one of our protection spells for Niv and for the Tandem Lookout. Simian Spirit Guide is just kind of some fast mana. We have Imperial Recruiter, which can basically get every creature in our deck, but it's probably going to get one of 3 most of the time. The first one is Goblin Engineer, which I'll get to why Goblin Engineer is important in a minute. Treasonous Ogre, because Treasonous Ogre will allow us to pay 9 life plus 3 blue to play Niv. All right. So it's kind of a good accelerant. We can also use the Ogre to cast red spells from our library. And then last one is our other backup combo piece, which is Glenhorn Buccaneer. So for those of you who don't know, everybody's always got that one asshole friend that's like, play it out. Like, you have Curiosity on Niv, you've murdered everybody to death, you have 100 cards in hand, and they're somehow convinced that the combined amount of life on the table is more than the 80 cards in your deck. Or maybe that's true. And Glenhorn solves that because it deals 3 damage with each ping. So what you do is you just slap a Curiosity on. You either do one of two things. You either put Niv in play, draw a bunch of cards, then you play the Glenhorn, go to your discard step, and then you get a trigger for each card you discard, and that kills everybody that way. Plus you've killed everybody on the draw. Or you slap a Curiosity on the Glenhorn, and then when you discard, it pings, you draw 3, and then you start doing multiple end steps. Just kind of like how Gitrog Monster does. And then since you're dealing 3 instead of 1 off of each card, you'll kill your opponents before you run out of cards. And then, so like, let's talk about Goblin Engineer. So Goblin Engineer is kind of important because much like the Treasonous Ogre, the Goblin Engineer is going to help allow you to make triple blue faster than you normally would in this deck. All right. So down in our artifact suite, we're running a card called Lotus Bloom. Now, on the surface, it looks kind of crappy because it's a 0 drop and then has to spend 3. Well, here's the thing. You can suspend it on turn 1 and it'll come down. If you suspend it on turn 1 or turn 2, it's going to come down generally about the time you're going to want to cast Niv. But also, Goblin Engineer, which will allow you to play that from your graveyard for sacking another artifact. So you pay 1, you tap the Goblin Engineer, and then you can put this, and then you sack another artifact, and then you can put this into play. The Goblin Engineer will also tutor it to the graveyard for you. All right? So then Niv basically becomes 3 red, 4 red, and then sack an artifact to get into play. All right? Goblin Engineer also allows you to kind of recur essentially every artifact in the deck if you need to. We're also running Curse Totem, Grafdigger's Cage as some static grave hate and creature-based hate because there's a lot of creature-based combos in this deck, just kind of as an FYI. So we're running 33 instants and we're running 8 sorceries. All of our sorceries are board wipes, cantrips, or tutors. So we're running Rolling Earthquake, which is a scalable board wipe, which is one of the things I like. And it deals X damage to creatures with horsemanship. So it'll kill flyers. Some people like using Earthquake. I understand that Rolling Earthquake will kill Niv. But I also like being able to kill my opponent's Dargans as well. Because you will see some big fat flyers and your red deck will have a hard time answering it. And at least Rolling Earthquake can give you an out by scaling. We're running Reshape. Doesn't seem like it's super necessary, but we can pay double blue and sack an artifact to go get the Lotus Bloom.
Oh.
Or if we need like the Mana Crypt or the Curse Totem or something else, we can go get those as well. We're running Pyroclasm. We're running a couple of cantrips. Cave-In. This is kind of like a little spicy tech card of mine. It's a board wipe that if you just pitch a red card, it does the Pyroclasm thing. So it's a free Pyroclasm. And with Niv, what's important is that you can tap him, you can tap out to play him, and then, or on very slim amount of mana left over, and then cast free spells to start getting cards back in your hand and start doing the board. So basically with Niv in play, if you cast this, you'll deal 2 damage to each creature and each player, and then you get a draw trigger, and you'll get to deal an additional damage to something. So you can kill all the X2s and then ping off an X3 or punch up or shoot an opponent in the face, right? Blasphemous Act, in the games that you need it, again, it's going to kill pretty much everything that you can kill damage-wise, but also has a cost reduction, so that way you can, against a super wide board, it only costs 1 or 2 red. We have Sweltering Suns. It'll do two things. One, we can cycle it. So it'll trigger Glenhorn Buccaneer for 3. It will trigger Niv because we'll draw. And 3, it's a X3 board wipe. So we kill Drannith Magistrates. So we want pretty much wherever possible, we want to really have answers for Drannith. Because this deck really doesn't work without Niv. So that is kind of something to be aware of. And then once we kind of move down in the instance, we got a lot of the usual suspects of like Abrade, Resculpt. But some of like the spicier stuff is like Thunderclap, Mind Collapse. Like those are both, you just stack a mountain and then you deal X damage. Mind Collapse is only on your turn, but Thunderclap is on both. We are running foil. This deck will draw enough cards to be able to leverage foil once Niv is in play. We've got Frantic Search, which is essentially a free spell. Gush. We're running like 19 islands or 18 islands. Like we're pretty deep. We'll have 3. We got Mog Salvage, which is another free one. Snap is another free one. Misdirection. Snap Back. Like that's how deep we're going. Snap Back. When's the last time you heard that? So that's
It's
just
been a minute.
Yeah, you exile a blue card, you bounce a creature. We're running Daze. And then to help protect Niv, not only are we running the Misdirection, we're running Divert, Bolt Bend, because Bolt Bend is a 1-mana redirect against our opponents. You could also run like Ricochet Trap if you wanted as well. And then to kind of another one to help answer the board is we've got March of the Swirling Mist. And then we just got like a normal, for the most part, we have like a normal interactions of Counter Magic Suite and just like some more removal of like Lightning Bolt, Pongify, Rapid Hybridization, stuff like that. Not like this deck is not fancy. It just does what it needs to do and it wants to get Niv out. And we're relatively well equipped to do it. And we can control the game till we're able to. We're running a little bit higher artifact count. Mostly it's going to be just things to help us kind of fix our mana, like the Pentap Prism, the Lens, Fellware Stone, Diamond, stuff like that. And then some things that are like tutorable with the artifact and tutors that we have. Nothing fancy down on lands, just like a couple of soul lands to help us cast Niv faster. And some fixin'. We're on 16 islands, so we'll have enough for Gush. But like really the main name of the game is to pick your window to get Niv and then have a couple of free spells or at least have the mana to play the cheap spells that you have and ride that to a win. And once Niv's down and you untap, it is very hard to answer. Like very hard. Yep. Because even if they play something like Out of Time on you, you've got a lot of counter magic to kind of interact with it. So, yeah.
Honestly, I think the hardest part is the fact that he can't be countered. Because that's where a lot of the decks that are meant to be in this kind of range have like their strengths is, through counter magic, through blue. And if he can't be countered, then how are you supposed to answer him? You know what I mean?
Well, a lot of times people will, there's a lot of spot removal I've seen, like at least from like my, from playing, like especially at the tournament and stuff. But like once you get a couple of draw triggers on him, he's very hard to interact. So
yeah, even if you have the spot removal, right? Typically it's an instant or sorcery, so you get a free draw from it.
Yep. Yeah. So. And we have some ways to kind of like ramp him back out. Like that's why one of the things that's why kind of like low key Goblin Engineer and Treasonous Ogre are like some of the best cards in this deck because it allows you to play like that Lotus again. Just sack whatever, like, oh, I tap my rock and then I get rid of it. Now I get my Lotus back, and you know what I mean, and that helps.
Yeah. I get my Lotus back. Oh no, Niv's next turn. We're chilling.
Niv will be this turn.
Yeah.
Like kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
Well, and then you can also just put all the curiosity effects on any of the other creatures in the deck to like deal some damage. And then you got Glenhorn kind of as like your backup plan. So, and then you just have lots of board wipes and removal, like lots. Your friend, like the biggest problem is that you might run out of cards if you don't if you're not able to like clear the board to get Niv out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. I think that about wraps it up. That's not, like, again, it's not a very fancy deck, but it's good. It does well.
It's an oldie but goldie, you know?
Yeah. It's a oldie but a goodie. So, any questions or comments?
No, I said what I wanted to.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us, and everybody have a good night. Bye.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
See you next time.